You win the argument and you're not even there. That's how this was. And so I put my badge back on, put my Sam Brown back on, went down to briefing, and then I went home. And I really did. And she goes, "What are you doing home?" And I said, "I'm getting the World Book Encyclopedia." And she goes, "To go on shift?" And I said, "Yeah, the one that says U.S. Constitution." Great big old book, heavy thing. Why didn't one of you give me those little pocket constitutions? But I didn't have one back then. And I kept that book in my patrol car for a week. And anytime I wasn't on a call, I was reading it, especially the Bill of Rights. And I loved it. And I'm studying that, and I'm studying now, and I'm getting into the flow of this thing. And I pretty much memorized the principles in all 10 of the Bill of Rights. And I wanted to hear more from the Founding Fathers, and I started reading about them. And then another miracle happens. The state of Utah that oversees police officers' standards and training, it's called POST, Utah POST. Texas, I think, has a little bit different name, but a lot of them are called POST, Arizona POST, Utah POST. They put out a training seminar called Constitutional Studies for Law Enforcement Officers. So I said, great, I'm going. And there was 240 cops in Salt Lake City at the University of Utah studying about this, and I hope some of you know the man's name that was the instructor. His name was Dr. W. Cleon Skousen. And he wrote the 5,000 years. Well, he used to work in the FBI with my father, and they knew each other. So I said, man, I'm going to this. And during 2 days of police training, we studied the making of America. We didn't study how to shoot a gun better. We didn't study officer safety tactics. We didn't study Terry versus Ohio or the Carroll Doctrine or anything else about what we usually in law enforcement study about when we go to seminars. We studied about the founding of America, the miracle America was, and what the Founding Fathers said and did, and their intention in devising this Constitution that we would all live by for the rest of America's life. And I loved every bit of it. And I learned so much. And during that 2-day seminar, I was converted. And I took another little oath while I sat there, and I said to myself, as God is my witness, I will never be on the wrong side again. And I kept my promise, and I kept my job, and I went on through law enforcement. And then about 5 years later, I decided that I wanted to run my own office, that I wanted to run things my way, according to the Constitution, according to what I had learned and what I'd been converted to. So I did a crazy thing, and I just picked up and left Utah and went back to my hometown in Arizona and ran for sheriff. And you need to remember, I hadn't been there for 12 years, had never worked as a cop in Arizona or in my hometown, and I walk in and say, make me your sheriff. Well, it was a real hard campaign, and I won. And then in 1992, I was reelected. And we always thought that this was kind of a real miracle, just leaving Utah, leaving a job, leaving retirement, and coming in and saying, make me your sheriff, and it just seemed so miraculous. And every now and again, we would wonder, why? And then we're at a meeting of sheriffs in Phoenix, and there's only 15 counties in Arizona. And 12 of the 15 sheriffs were at this meeting. And 3 agents of the BATF show up and tell us that we all have to obey some new regulations from Washington, D.C. in order to comply with the Brady Bill. Now you need to understand something here. This is an amazing process. They hand us a document and tell us that we have to work for the federal government because they said so, because they made a law. Oh, well, of course we have to then. Yeah, they made a law. You know, they stepped on home plate and made a rule, you know, and said, hey, you have to do it. And then it got even worse. And there's no money attached to the Brady Bill. You have to do all this stuff for us and pay for it yourself out of your budgets and use your personnel and your resources and just do it because we said so. And keep all the records of all these background checks you do on people. And there's this one little provision in there, and I'm going to show it to you as we get going on this slide presentation. I'm going to show it to you. So you don't think I make these things up. I'm going to show you the evidence of everything I'm talking about. Okay? So you're not going to be able to say, oh, Sheriff Mack, this crazy guy just made up all this stuff. And I'll show it to anybody. Anytime, any place, I don't care who they are. I'll show you the evidence. And so they said this is what I really want you to show. This is the first time in American history that the United States Congress made a law signed by the president that said if sheriffs don't do what we tell them, they're subject to federal arrest. Absolute true story. And man, I'm just shaking my head. And all the 3 BATF agents leave, and you never heard so much cussing in your life. None of the sheriffs, didn't matter what party they were, none of the sheriffs liked this. The federal arrogance and all this, they were saying, we're not going to do this. And then, by evening time, it all changed. The cussing waned, the emotions waned, and everybody started to acquiesce. And all these sheriffs that totally convinced me, I'm the youngest sheriff in the state at that time. And they're all saying, well, you can't fight City Hall, we'll just have to do the best we can and get along with this as best we can. And I said, you guys, you already totally convinced me we can't do this. Why should we do this? It's gun control. It modified the Gun Control Act of 1968. It's federal gun control. They're using us as pawns. And they're threatening to arrest us, and we're going to go along with this? Why would we do that? And so they all just are staring at me like, God, you're a rookie. You don't know anything. We're the seasoned sheriffs here. And so I said, I left there really disappointed. I didn't have any support, and I didn't know what I was going to do at that time. I just said, we can't do it. Well, I had a 3-hour drive home, and I was brooding and brooding all the way home. What am I going to do about this? I can't do it. I'm not going to go along. Finally, I drive up in my driveway, and it hits me. And I mean, it scared me. I'm going to sue my own government. I'm going to sue the Clinton administration and get out of this. Oh, I'm going to take it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I'm going to win this. And I'm going to win a landmark, monumental decision for state sovereignty. And I'm going to, no, good grief. I didn't know what I was doing. I was probably the most naive person doing this that you've ever seen in your life. But I said, I'm going to sue him. And I almost got comfortable at a moment. I said, but no, I won't. There's no way my wife's going to let me do this. So I said, okay, I'll just go in and tell her this crazy thing, and she'll tell me to go lie down or take an aspirin or something, and everything she's going to stop me. And I actually took comfort in that. Good. I don't have to do this. And I guess she was having a bad day. She totally supported it. And, I'm going, can't depend on her for anything. Stop me, And so seriously, I thought she's just going to tell me, look, what are you talking about? So when I did come up to her, I hadn't been home for a day and a half, and of course she wants to come up, give me a hug and a kiss. And before she even did that, I just said, I'm going to sue the Clinton administration, and we're going to stop the Brady bill, and the Second Amendment means what it says, and I'm just going to do this because I swore an oath, and that's it. Of course, she didn't know what the heck I was talking about. And so she goes, what the heck are you talking about? And I said, I really am. I'm going to sue the Clinton administration to stop the Brady bill, and it's going to cost us everything, home, career, job, whatever. And she goes, well, I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about, but I know you. And she goes, besides, we weren't really looking for a job when we landed this one. And I said, I'm going to take that as a yes. And she just kind of shrugs, and she goes, maybe now we know why you were sheriff. And I said, oh yeah, I forgot that part. And a couple of days later, after I announced that I was doing this, my mom said the same thing. Now we know why you were meant to be sheriff. And maybe so, folks, maybe so. And so I'm at the office. Now, any of you constitutional scholars, we got lawyers in here, Jim and some others. We got judges in here. Do you want to tell me what I do now to sue the federal government? I'm going to sue the federal government. I didn't take Sue the Government 101 in college, so I didn't know how to do that. And I know, just call a lawyer down on Main Street, one of my buddies, right, Judge? Just call one of my buddies. Is he going to take me to the Supreme Court? Not hardly. you got to be certified and all this and approved by the Supreme Court and all this stuff, and I didn't know anything about that. So, and I'm not a member of anything. I'm not a member of the NRA, not a member of GOA, not a member of nothing. Nothing. I was a registered Democrat at the time. Probably the most conservative Democrat in America. But in my county, you had to be, in my county, Graham County, you had to be a Democrat back then to win anything. So I was a Democrat. Didn't really care about that either way. Didn't care about party politics, just wanted to do a job. And so my undersheriff comes in while I'm thinking about this, and I said, Mike, you're a life member of the NRA, right? I told him what I wanted to do, and he kind of thought I was crazy. And I said, does the NRA have a toll-free number where you can call and get advice? He goes, they have a toll-free number, but I don't know what you're going to get. So I called it, and I got passed around a whole bunch, and finally, I landed in the office of Richard Gardner. And he was a lawyer for the NRA. And I told him who I was, what I wanted to do, and the next line blew me away. He said, Sheriff, we're already preparing the paperwork on this case, and we've been praying that you would call. So.